Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am Alec Lewis. This is episode 3. Appreciate you guys being here. This has been a fun ride so far. Started with Robert Mays, then did a little YouTube live mess up Q&A. That was enjoyable. And today we're going to have, you've heard of him. His name is Paul Allen. He is the play-by-play voice of the Minnesota Vikings, and he is one of a kind. There's no doubt about it. He hosts a radio show 9 to noon every single day on KFAN here locally. Good radio station. A lot of studs over there, a lot of really good people. And Paul is as good as they come. He has been really good to me since I got to Minnesota, had me on most Fridays during the football season, the Friday Football Feast, and I think we're going to keep doing that. That's my hope. I love the conversation with him, as you guys will find out. We like to have a good time. We like messing around, and then I like hearing what he has to say in his usually optimistic view about the Vikings. So looking forward to that. In the meantime, got some fun stuff at The Athletic, which is where I do my day job covering the Minnesota Vikings. I had a story that ran Monday on J.J. McCarthy, spent some time with his family in LaGrange Park, where he grew up, about 15 miles from Chicago. And then going to have a couple stories this week, Vikings related. Another feature on another player you guys are probably interested in will come later this week. So excited for you guys to read those. A lot more to come. A lot of work being done. A lot of calls on a day-to-day basis. It's the training camp grind is fully on, and it is it's nonstop. It's relentless. But it's very, very fun. You know, we've had about 5 practices. Monday was the first full padded practice day. Nothing absolutely crazy stood out. I mean, there were some ups and downs. Like there's a flashbulb moment that comes to mind for me of a J.J. McCarthy layered pass over the middle, probably about an 18-yard throw in a small window to Nick Muse, the tight end. Impressive throw. A lot of Andrew Van Ginkel with the starting group at edge rusher. Ivan Pace is flying around per usual. If there's anybody that's going to start a fight this week, I would have my money on him because he is just so physical all the time. The cornerback situation is still a concern for me, and I will be writing about that for Tuesday, so check that out at theathletic.com. A lot more coming, day-to-day stuff, and then more conversations here. So if there are guests you guys want to listen to, if there's ideas you guys have for the show, toss them in the comments section on YouTube. Please like and subscribe wherever you're listening, whether it is Spotify or Apple. But appreciate you guys spending the time. Do not take it for granted at all. And glad that we're just getting rolling. A lot to come. Hope you guys enjoy this episode as much as I did. It was very fun. We'll have Paul back a lot of times this year, I hope. So without further ado, I'll let him take it away. Here we go.
So I figured with the camera right here and an analyst right here, this is proper training to say, and boom, the Alec Lewis Show is in the air.
Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
It's been a fun camp so far. I was out there with on the perch with you. You were doing your prep. I mean, what year is this for you?
This would be, I started in 2002, so I'm into year 23.
Wow. And how does it feel?
It changes. It's like the more things change, the more they stay the same. It's just the ways and means become rearranged. Free agency, draft, quarterback, stuff like that.
I've heard of them. Yeah.
And you know, it's for me at this stage of my career with other things I have going on in my life. I'm just fortunate. God crafted me in a way I can compartmentalize. I can multitask. But this is a special time of the year for this individual entity because the pads go on for training camp practice during the course of the week. And I just know from hearing from players over the annals of time, you know, whether it's Ben Lieber when he played for the Vikings or Brian McKinney through Christian Darrisaw and whomever, that when pads go on, a lot of things change. A lot of money is made and careers can potentially end. And that all starts now, so that excites me.
We're going to hop into some of the big subjects. I do first want to thank you. You've had me on the radio show 9 to noon for a couple years now, mostly on Fridays, and it's a blast. And you know it. I love it. Every single year, it is one of my favorite things to do on a weekly basis, so I appreciate it. I'm going to start. I've never asked you to tell this story, So I want you to tell me the story of how you became the Vikings play-by-play guy.
For the sake of the viewers and or listeners on the podcast, it's a long, winding story. I'll do my best to give you the truncated version. But I'm at KFAN. We're located in Bloomington. Okay, I started there in 1998 and relocated. I'm from Washington, D.C., but lived in California for 15 years, racetrack announcer by trade, Canterbury Park, and there racing. So therefore, I'm comfortable working through binoculars, and I'm comfortable calling races where I quickly learned, while in 2000, the Vikings needed a Vikings.com feed. Okay, their flagship was A30WCCO with their parent company, CBS. And the Vikings came to them and said, we need a .com in 2000. Their parent company, CBS, would not do it. So they came to the competitor of CCO, KFAN, and said, we need a .com broadcast. So one of our bosses, Greg Swedberg, we had an all-station meeting. I'm in my third year there now. And said, who wants to do play-by-play? I said, I will. Well, I'd never called a play of any sport in my life outside of racing. So in the 2000 season, Chad Abbott, program director at the KFAN, he was the producer. And, I think we went to a bunch of road trips and we called all the games from the baseball press box at Metrodome. And I quickly realized early in the run, a football play is a shorter version of a horse race in that there is a crescendo that is built and is required to be built. So, and they're racing off the far turn at the top of the stretch. They come down to the line together and boom, so-and-so won. Darnold takes the snap, shakes the shoulders, fires deep left side to Jefferson. It's a crescendo building game. The art of it, at least the way I look at it, is building a crescendo. So they're similar. So I think that helped me a lot. I also, and now I've called, like 32,000 races over 31 years in horse racing. So I'm comfortable.
It's like 1,000 years. 1,000 races a year.
Yeah, and it's like 15,000 dog years.
Yeah.
So I also am comfortable calling plays off binoculars. So there are play-by-play guys around the league. They'll come up to me and they'll say, when our booths are by each other, geez, you're calling passes strictly on binoculars. And I'm like, A, well, why are you looking at me when the play's taking place? But B, they're right. It's not like I follow the ball, is I go to the spot.
Right.
So therefore I can get hip high or sternum high or helmet high, things like that. So it all plays together with the way they mesh together. But the bottom line is I kind of auditioned for the job. I won. And at the end of the 2002 season, the previous owner, Red McCombs, God rest his soul, I was told, didn't think I improved. And so I had to sweat the entire offseason and came in 2003, first games at Lambeau, renovated Lambeau Field. And Dante Culpepper and a running back named John Avery went in there and just absolutely whooped them. So we started with energy. And as we went along, with the likes of Kevin Harlan and Chad Hartman, who's now with CCO, but used to do the Chad and Barrero show at KFAN. They both really took me under their wing. And Chad was calling Minnesota Timberwolves games at that time. And they were just very blunt and candid with me. Yes, no, eliminate, change it to this. And Kevin Harlan took a big liking to me like 3 years into my career and just gave me some very inspirational things about which to think. And belief in myself, bosses who, with the Vikings and with now iHeart, who trust me and let me be myself. And that just kind of led to the whole thing.
Pretty incredible. If I told you 23 years ago you'd still be doing this, you would have said what?
Well, if you told me 23 years ago that I would be doing it in the first place, it'd be ridiculous. I mean, my first deal at KFAN, I'm making $29,000. And, at Canterbury, KFAN and Canterbury got together and said, let's bring Paul back from the Bay Area where I was calling races at Bay Meadows and Golden Gate Fields. And again, had never done any play-by-play. I had never done a full-time radio show. And so they got together and brought me back. And, I wasn't making a lot of cash and it just started. So I had no idea if there was an expiration date on this thing. But no, I couldn't 23 years ago to think that I'd be in here with you right now at this palatial corporal paradise talking about Vikings football as a 22-year play-by-play voice of a National Football League team. That was $1,000,000 to 1.
What is your favorite call?
I don't really have one.
You have so many.
I mean, the memorable moments and or favorite calls, I think, would be different. It's like when people ask me, how was the show today, the radio show?
How was the show today?
Well, it's hard for me to answer that because beauty is in the ear of the beholder. So I may think something's good, but like 60,000 think it was terrible. But there are certain calls over the course of 23 years and 400 whatever games that I'll never forget. There are calls from the Buffalo Bills game a couple of years ago.
Good game.
Just remember Devin Singletary in like the first quarter and a half. Holy cow. I mean, he's channeling his inner Thurman Thomas. And I had no idea it was that fast. And then the game goes on, JJ with the one-handed grab, but you see the 2009 NFC title game, the Bounty Gate game, that's the most memorable professional experience I've ever had in my life.
Really?
Yes, it's one of the rare, probably the only time after a game that I cried. When Brett Favre hugged me in the locker room, and I barely had spoken 10 words with him the entire year outside of one interview, and I was kind of intimidated by him. And I went up to him and I said, in my X amount of years of calling Vikings football, you're the greatest player I've ever been around in my life, and I just really hope
you said this after the game.
Yeah, and he had just Brett, Percy Harvin, Sidney Rice, and Adrian Peterson. Percy was Rookie of the Year. Sidney was in his second year. Adrian was in his third year. So they looked up to Brett not only as an iconic football player, but he was kind of a surrogate dad to them. And they all were crying, and I just stood there, and I got the courage up to go up to Brett and say what I said. And then he embraced me, and he was crying, and my shoulders were going up. And so, I'll never forget that. The Minneapolis Miracle with the fans trying to climb into the box, that was on the other side of it.
What about the one where no!
That was 2003, at the end of the 2003 season at Arizona. Josh McCown, the quarterback's coach here now, was the quarterback orchestrating it to Nathan Poole, and that's a memorable one.
Have you talked to Josh about it?
A little bit, very little.
What did you do? What was the...
Well, I want to, if we get the time, when things start to settle down a little bit, I want to get him into the TCO radio studio. And we have the call broken down.
Oh, yeah.
Here it is. The season's on the line. All right, Josh, what'd you think? 2 receivers left and right. Why not 3-by-2? McCown takes the snap. Did you ever think you'd fumble? I want to go through it like that with him. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But just lastly, off what you said, I think maybe the most memorable call to me that I've ever been part of would be week 3 of the 2009 season. Mike Singletary brought an incredibly rough and tumble, physical San Francisco 49ers team in here with Manny Lawson.
They were their best when their best is required.
Patrick Willis, Abreu Franklin. Not many people are familiar with him, but he was a nose tackle that was really, really hard to move. And Sean Hill, who I'm very fond of, former Vikings quarterback, he was the quarterback for the Niners. And the Vikings had Favre, and they beat Cleveland. They won their first 2 games. And we're on to something here. Well, Singletary and Hill had him beat the whole game. And what's memorable for me about Favre to Greg Lewis to win the game is not the oh my heavens, Greg Lewis, welcome to Minnesota, that whole thing. It's that I knew he was in the game because he had just gotten on the team that week.
Interesting.
Or recently, and he hadn't been in a game or a play or caught a pass. And I thought I caught his number when he came onto the field, but the fact that I was able to identify him with the game-winning catch, that was a blessing.
That's got to be tough. In the moment, I don't know, the brain has to be really going, I would imagine, to identify the correct. That's why you're out there during training camp with the binoculars.
Right.
I was sitting next to you the other day, Jalen Naylor, 83 Jalen Naylor. But that has to be... my brain wouldn't work that fast.
Well, that's this time of the year. I mean, when I come to training camp practice or the walkthroughs, and the Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi, just like Spielman and Zimmer and all the way back there, I'm very fortunate in that the level of trust is really high, and they let me watch pretty much everything because they know it helps my job calling Vikings games on the KFAN Vikings radio network. But when I come out this time of the year, yeah, I mean, Darnold to Jefferson for 50 is going to cause everybody to verbally skip and get on Twitter and say, we're back. It's all back. It's great.
You
back.
Like that?
Life is better. I loved it. At Alec_Lewis. Or the Darnold to Addison. I caught a nice JJ to Tristan Jackson. I think it was Wednesday or whatever. all that's cool, and the one-on-ones like Dallas Turner and Darisaw in pads today, the day we're recording this at least, that's going to be phenomenal.
Very fun.
But preseason, it's like when Alec Lewis and the rest of the media cohorts and the fans and TV are watching the Darnold, Jefferson, Aaron Jones, Jordan Addison field, I'm watching the other field for A.J. Green III and Bo Richter and Owen Porter and Andre Carter II and Michael Juergens and Walter Rouse and Jihad Ward. Exactly, because those are the guys who are going to play most in these preseason games. And we have the simulcast, Fox 9 and KFAN and the Vikings Radio Network coming up August 10th, and then we do one at Cleveland and one in Philadelphia. That's a fun time of the year too, because it's, I think I've called games on TV for the Vikings maybe 10, 11, or 12 years. And in the early stages, you would get people on the tweet machine or people would email or whatever and be like, you're over describing, I can see everything. Or you're under describing, I'm listening wherever in Seattle. Okay, cool. It's a simulcast. So now it's like I will service both during the courses of games where Chad Abbott, the executive producer of the Vikings Radio Network, I mean, it's tongue-in-cheek, but the radio doesn't prefer when I go like Darnold, Addison, and radio people are like, what happened? We have no idea what happened, but TV saw it.
Right.
Or sometimes I way over-describe one play, and TV be like, what are we doing here? So if you're not having fun with it, specifically in the preseason, and Ben, Pete, and I are so close with each other, and our respect for each other is so high, it's easy to have fun with those guys while describing the game and giving fans.
Remember last year, one of the preseason games, they simulcasted on NFL Network. They tapped you in, and now you were on NFL Network, and you had the binoculars pointed at the camera. Pat McAfee was tweeting about you. That's kind of what happens.
Really?
I thought memorable calls. I wondered if you were going to say the Stephon Gilmore decapitation of Justin Jefferson from 2 years ago. I mean, if he comes back, you could do walk him through that call just like you might do Josh McCown, don't you think?
Yeah, and then you know what? They have refs come to practice occasionally. Might as well just bring Trey Blake with the way he handled that 33-0 at halftime. That one right there, that second half was one of the more emotional of all the ones that I've called in 22 years. I mean, not only were they down 33-0 at half, they went 3 and out to start the second half. People forget that.
Judd Zolgad left at halftime. He sits next to me every game. Yeah. He's like, I'm out of here. Yeah, I'm like, no. I was like, it's wild. I mean, you want to talk Vikings right now?
It's your podcast, brother. I'm the analyst. You're the boss.
Are you enjoying this? Are you enjoying?
You can have me from Anniston, Alabama, for the next 10 minutes if you want.
Birmingham. You love that. I mean, you just said it. You talk to a lot of people in the building. I see you out there in your sandals with socks talking to
no socks.
Mike Pett. No socks.
And you might want to discover Birkenstocks. They're actually not bad.
Yeah, Birkenstocks are good in 1983. No, part of me wonders, just talking to people, like what vibe have you gotten from the people inside the building about how they feel kind of around this training camp?
Okay, well, let me, and I don't necessarily like when people do this with me, but I have to do it.
Sure, no, I appreciate
Let me start the answer with a question. How many games would they have won last year? They won 7. How many games would they have won last year had they not run through 4 quarterbacks?
At least 10, probably.
Okay, right there. Okay, so that right there, if you think it's 9, great. If you think it's 11 or 10, like young Alex said, great. But it would have been more than 7. So let's start there. It was abundantly apparent to me when Dobbs came in with the energy trip, but then they asked him to throw, and it was a problem. And then Jaron Hall, he got hurt. The Green Bay game at Lambeau was tough for him, but they still found a way to win the game. When Mullins came in, because he had played more snaps and had like 24 starts, how'd the offense run? All right, now Nick had some turnover problems at the end, but they're running up and down the field, and it looked like a Kevin O'Connell offense. So that's what it's going to be this year with Sam Darnold. I don't know how high. I don't know where it's going to be. So therefore, what do I hear? What are some sneaky things that people share on the inside about what they expect? That getting coaches and or players to look past this training camp, first day pads on.
Take it one day at a time, one play at a time.
But as trite and cliche as that may be, they have to be that way. it's and take it from somebody who has 3 jobs rolling right now, and I run a chapel in Shakopee. I got a lot going on right now where if I don't compartmentalize the Alec Lewis show, then go interview Vikings offensive line coach Chris Cooper, then memorize numbers and body types, then head over to the backside of Canterbury for the chapel this evening. If I don't compartmentalize it and take it literally one day, one step, one situation,
play, one game at a time,
right? Then I ain't in this thing to be good at everything and not great at any. So the compartmentalizing, which they do, is very, very important. Getting that answer to your question is tough, but I've heard a lot about how excited they are about their team speed, specifically the youthful vigor on defense and the speed of the defense. And last year, the Florida's defense is tough, and you know that from the stories you've written and the interviews you've done and the press conferences. It's tough to figure out. In the first 3 games of the year last year, a lot of players had problems. Well, the players who were on the team last year, it's quick twitch. So now with Dallas Turner, Jonathan Grenard, Blake Cashman, and some others who are new, how quick twitch can it be? If it's quick twitch out of the gate and it doesn't take as long as it did last year for some to pick up on it, I think they're higher on the defense than maybe anybody in the NFL would think.
Are you worried about the cornerback situation? I mean, obviously, it's been a brutal stretch in a lot of different facets. Right. Obviously, off the field with Kyrie Jackson and that tragic situation, the ACL tear and Mekhi Blackman. But where are you with that position group?
It's wait and see for me, and I'm not a team employee. Okay, I mean, I'm like a hired gun who does the preseason work, the O'Connell interviews, a lot of VEN work, and appearances, and just all that kind of boring stuff. So therefore, this is not Minnesota Vikings W2 team employee talking to Alec Lewis right now. I'm sharing from the heart where it's a wait and see, simply because it was a wait and see with Kyrie Jackson, God rest his soul, and or Mekhi Blackman. Caleb Evans, this is a very big year for Caleb. The 2022 draft for Kwesi obviously did not go the way everybody would have preferred it to go at this stage. One thing that's really impressed me, one of several things about the GM Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, is his self-awareness. Because if you're going to be the one to preach collaboration, and we all get a say in this thing, even though he gets the final say, well, when you have a draft like that, your self-awareness has to be such where you're like, I need to look at things differently. And he has. And you look at the next draft, then free agency, then this draft. So he's morphing, he's changing, he's improving. But along the way, the cornerback situation is a wait-and-see approach because it meshes with the pass rush. If Dallas Turner ends up being defensive rookie of the year, well, then that's going. He's not going to get double-teamed until he shows he needs to be double-teamed. Grenard will get double-teamed because they've seen it.
Proven.
And what are they going to do with Cashman? What are they going to do with Ivan Pace Jr.?
Van Ginkel.
Wow, that's a great one because he plays on and off the ball, which I guess not a lot of linebackers are really good at going on or off the ball. I've never looked at Andrew as a blitz kind of guy. I mean, he's a play diagnose, jump the route kind of guy, very good tackler. But they're deeper at linebacker than they've been in X amount of years. And what about Metellus or Cam Bynum now, second year in the Flores defense? So they are going to handle this cornerback situation in ways we can't see right now, involving players that we may not be able to guess are going to be in certain spots.
Well, I think you're right to mention the pass rush, too, to bring up the pass rush, because, and I've said this on other podcasts, I've probably said this on your show, in 2022, when I first started, Ed Donatell was the defensive coordinator. We know how that played out, but he always talked about marrying rush and coverage. Right. And so I think as much as we talk about the cornerbacks, we must also talk about the pass rush because they work together. Yeah. So it's I think it is right for you to mention without question. Now we'll see.
Well, back to Ed for a second, all right? I have a lot of respect for Ed Donatell.
Sure.
A high level of respect for where he's been, who he is as a man, and what he was given that year. And then doing the radio show at KFAN 9 to noon or reading stories, social media or whatever, there came a point during the 2022 season where people were like, you never blitz. Why do we never blitz? Why do we never blitz? And, that when you think that, you have to take the layering to the next level. Is, okay, well, you can blitz, but who do you have to cover?
Right, you need more people back there.
It's not more people. You need different people. Okay, well, that means Cam Dantzler would have been singled up against guys left and right. I mean,
I don't want that.
I don't think he's in the league right now. Maybe he's on somebody's practice squad. Duke Shelley, he's back now, but Duke was new here. Maybe that's not how he prefers to play. Or
Shannon Sullivan was in the slot, didn't have the best year.
No, and he had a really, really good run with Green Bay before that, and it just kind of fell off here. So, with Ed, Ed just got hit way too hard for the career that he's had, the man that he is, and the components that he had to do what people wanted. Well, then Flores comes in, and, that 7 across the line trick. I mean, that thing's the bomb. But it's not the bomb until you get 150 of them on tape. Because if you notice the first 3 games of the year, didn't do it that much. Mike Evans chewing up the team. Hurts and Devontae Smith got over the top on a busted coverage week 2. Keenan Allen goes for a career high and a gotcha play throwing a touchdown to Mike Williams. Those are significant problems, all right? After that, it tightened up. And see, then the offense kept fumbling. So Flores' defense had to pull O'Connell's offense out of myriad jams, which it did. So when you see it start to mesh that way, about games 4, 5, or 6, I was like, we might be onto something here because this thing's starting to get better in places where it wasn't good in the first 3 weeks. Then Cousins goes down.
49ers game, I've said that was the best performance, I think, since Kevin O'Connell's been here. I mean, just collectively.
No doubt.
That was an incredible run. But I thought it was smart of you to mention, like, how many games would they have won last year? Because to me, it would change the narrative so much in terms of how we would view probably the direction, the staff, like all of that. It definitely is an interesting facet. I want to ask you 2 more questions, and we'll get out of here, get out to practice. What have you thought about the way they've handled J.J. McCarthy and the long-term approach to development that they've taken thus far?
Well, J.J. threw so infrequently at Michigan. But when he did throw, he hit, and it was for big plays, like 3rd downs and stuff like that. Well, what's the record when he was there? 36-2?
It was
something like that.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Well, you'll get some negatives who come at you saying, but look at all these great defensive players and quorum in the backfield and everything. All right, well, the quarterback can mess the whole thing up too, no matter who you have around you. Jordan Love for the Green Bay Packers would be the perfect example. When the Vikings went to Lambeau Field last year,
Jordan, he looked just disheveled.
What Flores did to Jordan Love at Lambeau should be a felony in 48 states. All right. But then you watch him later, he's slicing and dicing the Vikings. He just absolutely killed the team. And in the final 10 games, 2 playoff games, he went for 23 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. In the playoffs, his yards per attempt was 8.5. All right. And with 5 touchdowns. So the kid took off. And Jordan really, really got good. However, the situation up to that looked awfully bleak. So it's having patience. And what was the question again?
What you thought about the Vikings playing with J.J. McCarthy.
Thank you. So therefore, Love had a chance to wait, and watch behind somebody who's an HOF. McCarthy, the mess up the game part. So Love in the 49ers playoff game, you can't follow a plan any better than he did. And he's a system quarterback, and Matt LaFleur's plan's really good. Until the last play when he decided to go with his will and against the coach's will, throw off his back foot, which I think is the problem for him. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He has a very strong arm. A-Rod throws off the back foot.
He does that a lot, though.
A lot. And I think it's a problem. And I think it got him on the Dre Greenlaw interception. So with McCarthy, there are just so many things, I think, through which they have to work. Because not only is he 21, when they took him, he was a young 21. And the one thing that I really like about JJ, no matter what happens with this offseason and who starts against the Giants, is how he's handling his lot in life. Because I've seen first-round picks come in here before, and they thought they immediately were going to start, and then they learned where you're going to start on special teams or where you're going to start behind this guy. And they got quiet, and they got distant, and it really...
It's like an ego hit.
It really, it's an entitlement thing. And JJ did not come in here with that. And he's accepting of his current role, accepting of what I believe his role will be this season. And when he plays, he plays. But he won't play until O'Connell knows he is absolutely ready to play. But, man, he's what a born leader. He is so engaging. When I see him behind the scenes with players, you can tell that they love him. He's just naturally an engaging leadership kind of guy. So that's going to be good.
So you've been that impressed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and in the offseason, you and I are in a lot of the same practices, whether it's windy or not. And I don't know what they're
trying. The velocity
Well, velocity's unbelievable, but he's overshooting guys left and right. He's throwing intermediate stuff, 100 miles per hour. All of that. His arm strength cannot be disputed. And when they say makes all the throws, okay, a lot of quarterbacks can make all the throws, but can you make them during the situation where it's required to make a certain throw? Which means
in the high red and the low red.
You need a bullet, you get it. You need it lofted, you get it. He's adroit with all of that, the timing of things and the situations. And it's going to be a wonderful training camp, and preseason games are going to be fun watching them.
Adroit was a very good word.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Last thing, Vikings related. Like, if there's one thing you want to figure out the rest of camp, what is it?
Well, you hit on the cornerback situation where
that would have been number one.
Well, Andrew Booth Jr., I want to watch him in the preseason because this is the land of 10,000 opportunities here. All of a sudden with the ACL and sadly the death of the rookie. And Griffin got dinged up, but I don't think it's that bad. And then, so where's he going to play? And what's Murphy going to do? And how are they going to mix in Bynum and Metellus? And how much is Harrison Smith going to play? Theo Jackson's another great one. Another Jay Ward. Okay, Jay Ward, outside of the offsides on the kicks, field goals, and extra points, those were mistakes of aggression. Personally speaking, I'd rather have my players making mistakes of aggression than getting beat passively. And there are some players defensively in the secondary who've played a lot the last couple of years, and they're too passive. And they're getting beat because they're either not studied up on it and they thought the safety had it when it really was them, or they're second-guessing things. And so I'd rather players go down decisively and go down aggressively. So I want to see how, and Jay Ward's that. Jay Ward's a very fast, aggressive kind
explosive player.
Right. So I want to see how that works out. But number one for me, man, is this whole kickoff thing because it's changing every second. Now you read Schefter or whomever on the tweet machine and they're talking about a 12th man in the game, and there's going to be a third out of bounds. That's the 20, where if you straddle it,
you're going to be like, what is going on?
And then the New Orleans Saints special teams coordinator further confused me. That's why, whether it's on Fox 9 or FM 100.3 KFAN and the vast and ever-expanding Vikings radio network, that's why I'm really happy we have Pete Bursich and Ben Lieber to carry us through all of this rigmarole. But think about it from the inside. And I chatted with Kevin O'Connell off the microphone a little bit about this last week. We were doing an appearance at something called Dunkers. And how do you handle this? This is new. You want to practice it in games with the guys you're going to use, but nobody does that in the preseason with anything. All right, well, we got the joints against Cleveland. You have two of them. How much are you going to work on the kickoff situation? Probably not a ton. I just know special teams coordinators around the NFL and head coaches still are confused. They should not be confused at this stage of the equation. It should be laid out perfectly that the NFL potentially is going to be changing things during training camp and maybe preseason games. I mean, seriously, it's like, what do? You pick out of a hat and say, okay, we'll start at the 35. All right, well, this is going to be a penalty. I just don't get it. I just need to see it, call it, and figure out how it's going to work.
Have you studied it at all?
A little bit. We have the landing zones. Cordero Patterson's the greatest kick returner in the history of the NFL. And, I had people saying to me, wow, what a great year for New England to get Cordero. What a great year for New England to have the best ever in the history of kick returns. Is it? I mean, because it's unique, quick twitch. Cordero with the big hips and thighs, very tough to bring down. Takes him a little while to get going. You know what I'm saying? This, you catch it, they're on you. You got to make one guy miss, another guy miss, and now all you have is the kicker. So the quick twitch nature of it is antithetical to what a lot of kick returners have been asked to do over the course of time. And, I mean, the kickers, okay? How often do kickers work on these big-time tackling drills? They are now. The kickers better be able to tackle because an all-time number of kick return touchdowns in the history of the NFL is coming this season. It's going to happen, so you better be ready to tackle.
I want you to go look up Will Reichardt's tackle against Auburn when you get time.
Iron Bowl.
He stands atop the guy and flexes. Will Reichert, all 5'6".
Wow. Holy
yeah,
cow.
incredible highlight.
I didn't know the guy looks like he has an abacus in front of him and he's going to do somebody's taxes, and then all of a sudden become the incredible man leaning over somebody.
You see his Instagram picture? He's sponsored by Walmart. He was wearing a backpack, back to school by Walmart.
Best ever. Will Reichert, I haven't called one of his games yet. One of the most unassuming looking football players I've ever seen in my life, and his right leg is big.
Yes, I have a story about him later this week.
Cool.
But
good job on the McCarthy family story.
I appreciate it. Antithetical, adroit. Do you use a thesaurus?
No, those are words in the English language. And
they are. That's correct. No, they are.
I don't want to bore your audience, but I
think they're interested.
I was a copy editor for the Pasadena Star News from 1989 to 1993, which means I sat on the desk and took in stories.
And then you unfurled them.
And I unfurled them, but you had to use an X-Acto knife and a pica pole to measure them. And it became fascinating to me taking 3 words and making it one.
Wow.
So alacrity is another word I'll use during race calls because it means speed. And it's not trying to flex with the vocabulary. It's just trying to have things become truncated and or pithy so the analyst and the on-field analyst get a chance to talk.
Incredible.
You're incredible. I'm really happy you're doing this.
No, it should be fun. Cool. It should be fun. Thanks for hopping on. Do you have a good time?
I appreciate you, brother. Love to do it anytime you want.
All right, great.
I know you're just using me for the Twitter following.
Why would you?
And to promote it. But I had a great time.
No, the problem is we talk for like an hour once a week.
Yeah.
I always feel like it could be more. And we're texting during the week, but so I'm like, it could be, we could talk more. I don't know why you're laughing at that.
That's great, man. You're the best.
No, thank you.
It's great having you around.
Appreciate you doing it.
And that is a wrap on the Alec Lewis Show. That was Paul Allen, who is as entertaining as ever. He is hilarious. He is amusing. He is creative. He'd be appreciative of those words. But no, thank you guys for listening. Really appreciate it. Like I said at the top, pretty cool J.J. McCarthy story that I hope you enjoy over at The Athletic. More stories coming later this week, including another feature that I'm excited for you to read. And yeah, like and subscribe this, comment on YouTube, whatever you guys want to see, whatever conflict you have with a take about Ed Donatel, will gladly listen to it and enjoy that. But no, thank you guys for listening. Appreciate it as always. Thanks for listening to the Alec Lewis Show.